Welcome to Open Source Health. I'm Tripp Johnson, founder and social entrepreneur who spent the last decade trying to make healthcare a little more humane and accessible and a lot less soul crushing. This show is about the real work of changing a broken system, from policy and strategy to using technology and AI in ways that actually help people. Whether it's intake forms, care teams, or back end systems, we're digging into how healthcare can be built for real world impact. Glad you're here. Here we go. Here we go. So you don't hear any background noise, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, I got the air fryer humming back here. Gotta stay in this ketosis. Here's my major update. I am now in a moderate stage of ketosis.
Dude,
I
I was
went
with this
from
morning.
like the trace element to I'm in that like darker purple. So I just peed in a cup and did my little dipstick and feeling pretty successful.
So what are you deep frying, right, or air frying right now?
But just one block of tofu that I'm just going to eat with a bunch of chili oil.
Actually, doesn't sound too bad.
It's not, it's good. I mean, like, that's the nice thing is like, I really like spices. I think I can, we'll see how long this ketogenic experiment lasts. I do think it's making my diet one of the most restrictive. I don't think many people out there are maintaining some sort of keto vegan
Yeah.
lifestyle. And knowing me, I probably won't either, but it's a fun experiment.
What prompted you? Why did you decide to do this?
Kind of a couple things. I mean, the most recent was, one of our teammates has some like insulin issues, started wearing a continuous glucose monitor. We started talking about some of that. And then 2 years ago, I read a book called Brain Energy, which is, a metabolic theory of kind of psychiatry and mental health, and the idea that, our diets really impact our how we feel, how we think. And there's a new psychiatrist we have joining the team who is very interested in metabolic psychiatry and adding this to our practice. So that, coupled with the fact that I'm always pretty up and down and I'm trying to show up better at home and like, for my family, and just be like more consistent, not show up tired or moody,
Right.
made me want to at least run an experiment to see if this helped me kind of stay in a narrower band of vibration.
Yeah. So I guess that was your weekend, huh? Getting into ketosis.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we're really just like 2 days, but yeah. What about you? What do you have going on?
Man, I saw the movie Sinners. I was like I guess maybe one of the last people to see it or catch it before it left theaters. But fuck, man, that was a great movie. It's like one of my favorites that I've seen in years in the theater. Just dealt with a lot of like complex culture and art issues, I think, in a way that was really nuanced.
Mm.
I think a lot of times people, when you start talking about the idea of like cultural appropriation or the concept of colonialism or any of that sort of stuff, it gets so like immediately someone gets defensive, and I think this movie wrestled with those things in a way that's really complex and interesting. And I'm a big blues guy and love blues music, so it had a lot of really fun hat tips to the
Mm.
whole culture of like Delta blues and you know American music in general. So yeah, it's great, man. Can't recommend it enough. I know you'll never see it because you're not a go to the theaters kind of guy, but it's worth seeing.
I think usually after they go to the theaters, you can watch them from home.
Yeah,
I don't know if that technology has reached you in Fletcher, but if
yeah,
you go into Asheville, you may find that they have the internet and streaming.
yeah. I've heard tell of such things.
Yeah.
You're not really a movie guy, though,
Uh,
right?
never really have been. I mean,
Yeah,
and I love TV shows, but
yeah.
like movies, if I like it, yeah, who knows? I mean, I can watch every Law and Order. I can't watch it again. I don't like to know what happens, but I do. I don't mind the repetitive, like the what do they call that for the scripted dramas?
Procedurals.
Procedurals. Like I can get into that. I like procedurals. I don't like humor. Like I don't want my Law and Order to be funny. So like I don't like NCIS,
Right.
Criminal Minds. Did we talk about Oz recently?
No,
That's the old one. Have you seen Oz?
no. I'm familiar with it, but
Uh,
I've never seen it.
I need you to watch Oz.
All right.
I would really ask for you to at least watch it. Uh I think it's like how it's one mechanism to vet people. Like you're a little fucked up if you like Oz. Like
I'm
it
sure I
is it
probably
is dark enough that well-adjusted people like are a little turned off by it.
will. Yeah, so Kelsey's not watching, huh?
Absolutely not. She might last like 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
that's before any of like the real, you know, prison rape scenes start.
Yeah. I don't know. I got really into Boardwalk Empire, and
Uh huh.
a show that I've like really binged, and I kept fucking up because I was watching it, and Rachel would walk through the house, and she'd see it on, and she initially wasn't interested in it, thought it was too violent, and then she slowly got invested, and then she stole my binge from me, and I couldn't do it, couldn't watch without her. So thought it was dark
Well,
enough. I was wrong.
ketosis and dark TV shows. That's a good warm up.
Yeah, that's
You
warm
know who
up.
might understand this?
Who was that?
Be able to synthesize this? AI.
AI just may.
Uh huh.
Let's launch. Let's go.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. So I kicked you an article earlier today. I'd seen
Yes.
something online that discussed some big survey, what people are actually using AI for right now. And specifically, we're talking about large language models. Let's
Yeah.
just call it AI or Chat GPT for the discussion today, knowing that that could be other language
Right.
models, etc. I found this like super interesting because I think like I was a fairly early adopter from the non-technical seat and have really encouraged a lot of people to adopt it. I was very shocked to see like what people are actually using it for. Because for me, it's mostly a productivity tool, learning companion, writing companion, brainstorming partner.
Same.
But the number one use case for AI in the both 2024 and so far in 2025 is therapy slash companionship.
Yeah. What are your initial thoughts on that? Because I have some of my own.
I'm actually like I'm not surprised that it's going that direction. I'm shocked that we're already there. I'm
That
shocked
was my
that we're
yeah.
already there.
Yeah. I mean, this was the I love the quote, right? Like AI is not going to replace you, someone using AI is going to replace you. But for the last couple of years, I think we've been throwing some alarm on this and trying to grapple with it ourselves and as a company. Like, what does this actually mean as a healthcare company that primarily does behavioral health? And and we've been saying this AI stuff is coming for us in some sort of capacity, or there's going to become so much larger and part of the picture and something to really wrestle with. And the most common pushback we've gotten has been from therapists that you can't replace
Mhm.
the human connection. And I think at times we've struggled to articulate, like, listen, we agree. There's something about being human and interfacing and connecting with humans. It's just absolutely vital. I mean, we've been on hot on that for the last couple of months with grades like hedonic cocoon and all this sort of stuff, where like our tech and algorithms can just give us an approximation of everything we think we want, and it makes it difficult to sort of leave or get out and receive and engage in human connection. But I'm like you, man. That the fact that it's already there is alarming to me because I don't think we really wrapped our head like society and culture, and especially in I think behavioral health, have wrapped our
Yeah, I think this is the example I've heard talked about in the media a lot, or of course Scott Galloway, but that the idea that the writer like the writer strike kind of thing,
yeah
like they and I because I'm not capable of remembering all of this, like there was a parallel, and he was basically saying that like the writers are like everyone is picking the wrong target. Like this is not writers versus studios. Writers
yeah
and studios should be teaming up against like AI and intellectual property rights for their, anything that a large language model would ingest in order to then develop content in the future. And so what I've seen a lot of online is a lot of therapists saying, hey, you cannot replace this therapeutic relationship. And they're making the case that there's something special, which we agree with.
Yes.
But the simple fact is, a lot of therapists are losing business to AI right now, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And this doesn't actually surprise me very much. When we talk about what matters in healthcare, we talk about access, affordability, and quality.
Yes.
AI is already going to run circles around us on accessibility and affordability. So
Yes.
now we actually have to prove that we are better. If you're a therapist or running a behavioral health organization, we have to prove that our quality is better than AI. And from where I sit, like, it is very tough to beat that. I believe it's true, but I think this is going to be a reframing of what is behavioral health
Right.
for a decade to come. And everyone who's talking about is AI good or bad or this or that is just missing the point. And I think in any job, whether it's consulting, therapy, if your job is to communicate ideas and to interact with people,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, we are looking at a tectonic shift coming. And if you're not talking about how am I going to make sure that I can show a quality difference over AI, you're not even having the right conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's the conversation now. It's not whether it's right or wrong. That or like optimal, right? Like it's because it's already going to win in the marketplace anyway, right? And the corollary that I have for this is sort of the same sort of arguments of like Blockbuster and Netflix, right? Like, did we lose something by Blockbuster dying off, right? Yeah, we lost this like cultural sort of grounding point, like this, the Friday evening, uh, like town center sort of thing, and you look out and you have all these rituals that are really pleasant and enjoyable, and you go do this, and then Netflix comes on board, and we can all say like, yeah, I enjoyed going to Block. Great experience. I enjoyed interacting with humans. I enjoyed the process and curating my evening and figuring out how I was going to do that. But as much as I enjoyed that or found derive some satisfaction, Netflix wins because of accessibility and convenience. And I think this is somewhat similar with therapy. We're already seeing it. That was what was alarming to me about this.
Yeah, I had, again, if you had asked me where I thought like therapy slash companionship would be, like they listed 1 to 100. Um, what do they call these use cases?
Yes.
And I would have guessed it was around like 10 to 20.
Yeah, I that would have been aggressive. I would have felt a little full, like Chicken Little head coming off, even
That's
saying,
true.
yeah,
Because, like, just to run through a couple other examples. So the top 10: number one, therapy companionship; number two, organizing my life; number three, finding purpose; number four, enhanced learning; number five, generating code for professionals;
yeah,
number six, generating ideas; number seven, fun and nonsense. I think that's my dad is over indexed here. Number eight, improving code for pros; number nine, creativity; number 10, healthy living. And a couple others that jump out. I know you're on this, so this is an interesting one to me. So all of that stuff, there was a lot of like self-development esque stuff in the top 10, but then like planning workouts is down at 100. Drafting a document at 51. Like, I use it to draft every document. Excel formulas, I don't know Excel that well, but ChatGPT does. And so I've become really good with Excel.
So the one that was most, if you want to throw a judgment on this, the most dystopian to me was finding purpose, right? Like number three coming in is like finding purpose.
I say more. I kind of disagree, but I'm with you, but I think like all of the first three really all to me are very much in that like relationship community kind of vein.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think you're right. Like they're clustering around that, but there seems to be something categorically different than I'm seeking therapy or companionship. There's something that like I'm seeking to find purpose for my life. Um, maybe you know, maybe that does make the most sense for that or something, right? Like it becomes like a way of talking and engaging with the idea and trying to get clarity in some sort of capacity. But I just found that that was an interesting one as being categorically separate and in the top five. It's just never something I would think about using it. It would have been in my top 100.
Have you used it to generate any prompts about like your blind spots? Like, what am I not seeing? Because like I
Yes.
mean, it has been. I was talking to my dad about this the other day because he sent me his like basically psychological evaluation,
Yeah.
and he's like, "This is like by far more accurate than I could have been about myself, or like I think any professional could have gotten."
Yeah.
Granted, it's got months of data and conversations to go on.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot imagine a sense that like AI is not going to be better at diagnosis, especially when it comes to like quote self-report and what you can actually figure out from much larger data sets than a clinician could ever hope to have.
Yeah. So I think, while we've wrestled with this sort of stuff, where we've sort of stuck a claim or stuck a stake, and you've done it, is in our cultural values. And I don't know that we necessarily know how this ties into AI as much, but we sort of suspect it and believe that it does, right? Like, but this idea of people are the point. And so I think we've, essentially said like, hey, we're a healthcare company, behavioral health. We work with people. And that's the whole point of this. And so we're also an early adopter of AI tech, and we're trying to go with the flow with this a little bit, right? Like, can you elaborate on? Like, do you see that as a tension? Like, what's the idea of people is our point in relationship to this AI?
Well, I mean, and so let me just back up and say, to frame kind of how we arrived and how we not just updated our values, but kind of trace some of the thinking over the last few years. It was like everyone wants to jump to outcomes measures. We're here to help people.
Yeah,
And I have historically said if we want to help as many patients as possible, we have to be a really good place for good providers to work. So like that was the original thesis, is like we need to be a good place to work if we actually care about patient outcomes over time. And then how do you make it a good place to work? And so your question around like how does this relate to AI? Well, ultimately, like if flourishing is the goal, we want to encourage people to use the resources that are going to help the most.
yes,
I do believe that AI has tremendous promise for therapeutic relationship, companionship type stuff,
yeah,
but I feel like it is again this is the simulacrum that we talked about last week. This is the map is not the territory, whatever mental model you want to use, that we're approximating human to human social primate interaction. And so I worry that like it is filling a gap, and it is doing a lot. It can actually be very helpful, but if we're not using it to actually get plugged back into to the community and have real relationships, it's likely going to lead us to a worse spot. So
yes,
that's where I'm like very concerned about it for someone like if you were using AI as a therapist or a companion, I would say just make sure that like part of the goal of that relationship with ChatGPT is that you feel more confident and you learn how to build real relationships too. But then you've got the other side of it. Like, I care so much about the people who work here. And from a pure business disruption standpoint, is if people are turning to AI for therapy or behavioral health help in general, that means the demand for what we do is about to receive a tremendous shock. Like,
yes,
we're not going to see as many people reaching out for an actual therapist.
Right.
Now, again, I think this is going to be, there's going to be some cycles of this too. But to me, like, my biggest concern is how do we position ourselves and how do we have that value proposition so that, like, hey, we don't have any crazy demand shock where all of a sudden no one wants a therapist because they're just going to AI, which I
Yes.
know is a extreme case, but that's where my head goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's extreme, but we're already seeing it, right? Like if we there's no way of like really knowing where this stuff goes, right? So we make our projections and what are our predictions for how this stuff plays out, and then we try to orient and position ourselves to be able to respond to it. And that's all that you can do in life anyway. And you're going to be wrong a lot. But if we're looking at this thing right now, if you polled both of us and asked us to rank order the top 50 uses for AI in terms of actual human behavior, how are humans actually implementing it right now? Neither one of us would have put therapy in the top 50. I would have put it in the top 100, right? Like I just wouldn't like it makes sense to me. And both of us have been saying for a long time, like, listen, don't think that you're irreplaceable, that there's some sort of human element that you're providing in a session that means so much that a person wouldn't be persuaded to use something that's free and convenient. And so if we're sitting here saying, hey, we don't know that this is going to replace therapists or anything, but if anything, that survey shows that this is much further ahead of the curve than we would have guessed, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this
Yeah,
is shocking to me. And I think
yeah.
it should send, like, and now again, there are certain elements, like, so where do you want to go with this one? Do we want to stick with the people or the point, or do we want to talk about like what, the macro kind of impacts from behavioral health or what we're trying to do?
I mean, I'm always interested in the macro, you know? And I mean, I still think there's a golden thread between that and the idea of like people are the point, because we are staking our claim that we want to be a place that, our belief is that if we have really happy employees and team members and we all feel challenged and we get along and feel supported and have a really good culture, then patients are going to have a better experience.
Hmm.
I see these things, the golden thread being both macro and micro within our system. And I think we're trying to control for that, for the macro a little bit. But
So yeah, so I'll kind of go macro to micro. So yeah, I mean, I think AI is going to disrupt basically every white collar industry. Healthcare is right in the crosshairs as well. Um, Behavioral health, anything that is talk based therapy is, or talk based,
uh-huh.
communication based, subjective experience, self report is ripe for AI to just totally disrupt and be a higher quality as well, quite frankly. Like,
Yeah,
just from a competence in diagnosing and creating a treatment plan, I think it's just really silly to think that as humans we could be better. I know for a fact or I feel very confident there's very little I can do better than AI, broadly speaking, and the idea of flourishing is about as broad of a topic as it gets, right?
yeah, exactly.
So, like, yes, I'm better at AI. I know more specific stuff, as it pertains to, CPT codes in North Carolina and how you might go about building a primary care outpatient psychiatry. But like, it is always better at the broad information. So that's step one. So I don't want to fight against it, and that's why we brought a lot of technical competence in house. Is like, we know we need to leverage it to make ourselves better, both from the provider side and just running an organization, and more fun for the patients. uh but then how it affects us is like, I would say I'm very concerned that a lot of people are not going, there's a world to me in healthcare, just going back to that. I think healthcare is going to be majorly disrupted. The places that are the easiest to disrupt, like we just said, were the, communication talk based kind of services.
Yes.
Now with a pinprick urine sample, whatever it is, run it to a lab, it can give you really personalized medicine. Like you feed that information to AI, it can do a really good job helping you interpret everything. So like even physical health doctors, internists, primary care, everyone is under the gun for this being disruptive. But
Right.
then like so what do you do? Like I think the wrong answer is to fight against it. This is like the just trying to fight and overpower a much more powerful enemy. But how do we carve out like what really matters? And I think like there is going to be this continued and exacerbated loneliness epidemic. And I think in behavioral health, like we're going to need to potentially reframe some of what we do to help people build community and to build community with our patients is going to be like extremely important. I think like healthcare in this sense could shift into more of like a social service. Uh, if you ask me from a very like futuristic perspective, the future of behavioral health is like a YMCA to some extent, like where you've got all sorts of different games and ways to interact. It might even have a bar, but like it's got a smoothie bar, it's got an alcohol bar, it's got a all of these different ways where we can come together and just have fellowship, exercise, whatever that is, right? And like on your way in, you prick your thumb. 10 minutes later, someone tells you, hey, if you want to go see a doctor or talk through some results, you can go see what's going on with your health right now. And like we could theoretically be in this utopian world where as behavioral health providers, like we're literally out there kind of in the real world helping
Yes.
people, with these precision insights that we're now able to gather and help them, whether it's like exercise, learn how to cook. Like there's still behavior change that has to happen. And I fundamentally believe that humans, like the human to human interaction is going to be more impactful for most people in driving actual behavior change. But we're already behind the eight ball because we're more expensive and we're less accessible. So we have to figure out a way to be higher quality.
Yes. I mean,
That's an interesting little think about going in, pricking your thumb, get on the scale, you go play basketball, go cook a meal, hang out, have a beer, whatever it is for you, and then you get all of your information on the way out and you can meet with someone. Like how cool would that be?
I mean, that sounds really hopeful and optimistic. I mean, I'm somewhat skeptical that healthcare can provide that. But I'm also intrigued by this sort of idea in some sense, right? Like New York Times, at the beginning of the month, they did a big article on happiness, on like happiness research, and we've you and I have talked about it and all this sort of stuff. It's like really not that complex necessarily, in the sense that like people that tend to be happier, and there's always like causation, correlation, all that sort of stuff, like chicken and egg. But like essentially, like we kind of understand what makes a happy person, and we have for a long time, right? Like Aristotle was deeply interested in this sort of question, and classical philosophers were deeply interested in what the good life is and what a good person is. And essentially, it always boils down to you know moderation of different things in your life, exercise, food, but then it's always dedication to being of service to others, being connected to your community, like generally living some sort of life in that way, right? So the happiness research that New York Times was tapping into, it's like, yeah, the people that are happiest are people that are having regular human interaction with friends, that are tend to be married, have kids, that sort of thing. It's like, well, man, that's not that sexy of an idea, right? It's not that, because it's not overly that. We've known that for a very, very long time, and yet what we're taught, and it's one of the bigger, seems to be one of the bigger predictors for healthcare outcomes, are those things. It's these protective factors, and yet we're now living in a time where that's becoming increasingly more difficult to access. So in some sense, if we know that that's what leads someone to flourishing or gives them a good quality of life, does healthcare now enter into this to provide that as the intervention?
So my take is, I think to reframe or to restate this, on one hand, like we are all kind of agreeing there's like some loneliness epidemic,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Technology is pushing us further into our own little algorithmically curated cocoons.
yeah,
And happiness is largely derived from not being isolated in a cocoon. And so we do have a big problem, like, especially from that idea of the subjective experience of flourishing. It seems like we've got a really big problem because we're getting pulled, we're going the wrong direction. And then the question just becomes, so what? And what's the intervention? And how do we get our healthcare system overall to reorient? Because I mean, quite frankly, this is a paradigm, a massive paradigm shift that I think we're likely calling for and trying to articulate what our call actually is. But I think this is probably some of the right call. And I don't think it's that new either, right? Like, not just the companion, needing good relationships, but like we have focused so myopically on symptoms sometimes, and now we're going to see that it really is this idea of how things are connected and the importance of that.
yeah,
I can't get a number one 2 years
I know.
in a row.
Yeah. The first three are still jarring to me. Companionship. I mean, and the article went on to talk about this, using it for grief and love, like loved ones that have died. I don't get it. Like, I don't know. It's weird. I've always promised that I wouldn't, like, promised myself I wouldn't be as I got older, wouldn't be finger wagging at society and the kids and all that sort of thing. But I don't know. This does feel like something pretty alarming to me.
Yeah. Well, I think like I think the way to try and avoid that for us, because I'm with you too. It's like, I don't want to be the guy who's just saying this new generation and their technology. But I think like we've each embraced a lot of more ancient practices, from stoicism to non-duality. We both really enjoy and find exercise and movement important to us. These are not novel things. And
Yeah.
so I think it's either Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, often asks the question, like, okay, there's all of this stuff changing, right? Like, the world is fundamentally changing and people get swept up in that. But one of the most important questions to ask is, what stays the same?
Hmm.
And I think like what I'm hearing and what I'm kind of thinking right now is flourishing remains the same. Like, that it's
That's
kind
not.
of simple and it's kind of boring,
Yes.
but it's hard to do consistently.
Yeah.
And now AI could be a tool in that, or it could be our biggest enemy in that, kind of reality world where we're approximating what it feels like to flourish, but we just can't get there. And then we drive ourselves mad.
More to be revealed or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, yeah, if anyone's listening and has thoughts on what they're seeing in the market, especially because I think there are going to be some trends, really soon. Like, we just the fact that there has been such a move over the last, I'd say, 5-6 years about destigmatization of mental health. And you couple that, so then a lot more people probably going to school, starting new, colleges, creating new grad programs. We're going to be flooding the market with more and more, therapists and psychiatric providers. And that is coming head on as people are shifting to AI to talk to
Yes.
and to get therapy from and have companionship from. And these are two, like, this is a real clash of worlds. So yeah, if anyone has any thoughts, reach out to us. We'd love to hear or have you on the pot.
Absolutely. Be great.
All right. Well, let's rock and roll. Let's see if I got any deeper into ketosis as I ate that air fried tofu.
See what that.
Mm.